من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد سيد الأولين والآخرين مدد يا رسول الله مدد يا سادة الصحابة مدد يا مشايخ دستور مولانا شيخ الله فاز شيخ محمد كان مدد طريقتنا الصحبة والخير في الجمعية her zaman Allah'a şükrederek.
We begin by always thanking Allah Almighty.
Şükrederek inşallah bitiririz.
And we begin by giving thanks to Allah Almighty. And by the will of Allah Almighty, we will end by giving thanks to Allah Almighty.
Şükrümüz daim olsun Allah Azze ve Celle'ye.
May we be steadfast in our gratitude and thankfulness towards Allah Almighty, and may we always continue to thank Allah Almighty.
Verdiği nimetlere verdiği.
We are thankful for all the divine favors He has bestowed upon us.
Güzelliklere.
We are thankful for all the beautiful things He has granted to us.
Allah'ın Azze ve Celle'nin verdiği şeyler güzeldir.
Everything Allah Almighty has favored us with is beautiful.
Onu kabul edip de onun kıymetini bilenler için
and it's important for us to accept and embrace and appreciate the favors Allah Almighty has granted to us.
Her şey güzeldir Allah Azze ve Celle'nin verdiği şeyler.
And those who realize this and accept and are aware of the beauty of everything that Allah Almighty gives will find the beauty in everything.
Allah Azze ve Celle yolunda giden insanlar daima kazançlıdır.
Those who follow the way of Allah Almighty will always prevail.
Kıymetlidir.
They will always gain benefit and they will always obtain what is valuable.
Onların kıymeti büyüktür.
And those who follow the way of Allah Almighty are valuable and they hold high esteem.
Ama insanoğlu şimdi hele bu zamanın insanı bu şeyi bilmiyor.
People these days, however, are not aware of the value of following the way of Allah Almighty.
Bildiği şey nerede birini menfaat.
The only thing people are interested these days is how to benefit and take advantage from others.
Sağlayacağım diye.
All people are concerned about is how to obtain a profit for myself.
Bir şey düşünürse onların peşinden gidiyor.
People run after all those things where they think that they will take advantage, where they think they will make a profit.
Her türlü menfaat.
It's all about profit in all kinds of ways.
Menfaat dünyası demişler.
We live in a world of profit.
Şimdi tam manasıyla menfaat dünyası olmuş.
And now we experience the full manifestation of what it means, a world of profit.
Hakiki faydayı, menfaatı bilmiyorlar.
People have become unaware and do not acknowledge what is truly valuable and what truly brings benefit.
Bu yalancı dünyanın menfaatine kanıyorlar.
Instead, they are fooled and cheated by the lies of this world and by those things which they think they would be profitable but which are not.
O da onda kazanamıyorlar.
Thus people are in the pursuit of worldly profit, but even that they do not manage to obtain.
Çünkü insan hepsi menfaat peşinde olduğu için
everyone is in the pursuit of making a profit, of taking advantage.
İnsandan menfaat bulmadıkça menfaat vermek istemiyor.
And people do not want to contribute and they only want to do something if there's a profit to be gained, and people do not engage as long as there's no self-interest, as long as there's nothing to gain for them. What's in it for me, they say.
Muhakkak karşılığını istiyor.
They always want something in return.
Karşılığını istemeyenler kimdir?
And who are those who do not want something in return?
Allah Azze ve Celle Kur'an-ı Azimüşşan'da söyledi.
Allah Almighty mentions them in the Holy Quran.
لَنْ نَسْأَلْكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا. Peygamberler,
It is the messengers and the prophets of Allah Almighty.
onlar menfaat beklemeden
They are the ones who do not expect anything in return.
insanlara nasihat ediyor.
They serve, give recommendations, and guide people without asking anything in return.
Doğru yolu gösteriyor.
They show the right way without expecting anything in return.
İyiliği veriyor.
They give goodness.
Hiçbir karşılık istemiyor.
And in return, they do not expect anything.
Karşılık Allah verir diyor.
They know that it is Him, Allah Almighty, who will reward them.
Allah Azze ve Celle verir.
Allah Almighty gives.
Onun karşılığını
Allah Almighty will reward those who do good.
Allah Azze ve Celle'den bekliyorlar.
And thus the prophets and the messengers of Allah Almighty do not expect anything from the people they guide, but their only expectation and what they desire is Allah Almighty.
Şimdiki eskiden de vardı ama şimdi iyicene işi yüzde milyon olarak menfaat olarak insanoğlu düşünüyor.
It's in former times people were always interested in self-interest and in making a profit for themselves, but now it's not even 100%, 1,000,000%. The only thing people care about is how to gain a profit for themselves.
Nereye bakarsan aynı şekilde.
And wherever you look, this applies everywhere.
İster burası, ister orası, ister İslam, ister gavur,
Whether here or there, whether in Muslim countries or not Muslim countries,
ister ateist, ister şey olsun.
whether people believe in God or not, this applies to everyone without exception.
Hepsini bir kalıba sokmuşlar.
Everyone is been pushed into a single shape.
Bu kalıp nedir? Menfaat peşinde.
And what is the shape now people find themselves in? It's the shape of always being in pursuit of making profit, in always the pursuit of always making and taking an advantage.
Menfaat bir de menfaate zarar peşinden koşturtuyorlar bütün milletlere.
And thus they've made people to only be concerned about self-interest on the one side, and on the other side, the second thing they made people do is to harm.
Çünkü insanoğlunun en kıymetli şeyini çalıyorlar.
And they have stolen away what is most precious.
En kıymetsiz şey vereceğiz diye vaat edip
And they promised to replace what is most precious with what is without any value.
onu da veremiyorlar.
But they cannot even fulfill their promises.
Verseler de onun faydası yok, zararı var.
And when they fulfill their promises, there's no benefit in it. Instead, there's only harm in it.
Yani kıymetli şey insanın ömrüdür, vaktidir.
What is valuable is one's time. What is valuable is one's life.
O vakti Allah Azze ve Celle'nin yolunda harcayacağına
It is valuable to spend one's life in following the way of Allah Almighty.
lüzumsuz işler peşinden
But instead, people waste their lives with useless things.
koşturarak
They run after useless affairs and businesses,
koşturtuyorlar.
and they are made to run after these useless affairs and businesses.
Her insan başından çok şeyler geçmiş oluyor.
And then
De o da git. Şimdi sonra derken vakit geçti. Bizi Şam'dan sınır dışı ettiler. Böyle O da git. Şimdi sonra derken vakit geçti. Bizi Şam'dan sınır dışı ettiler.
And these are circumstances we have experienced ourselves too when in our young age, when we were looking for a permit to stay in Damascus. Things have been going back and forth about our situation, and in the end they made us leave Damascus.
Böyle insanların bu insan hiç bir şey yokken başkasına torunları her dolu. Onların bereketleri o yerlere daimdir. Çünkü Allah onların sevdiği, Peygamber Efendimiz sevdiği kul, en sevdiği kul olduğu için onun Ehl-i Beyti de nerede olurlarsa onlara da bereket olur.
And we recently traveled to Egypt, where we experienced the blessings of the saints and the sacred family of our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. It is a land where everywhere is to be found holy people, the maqams of awliya, the maqams of the holy family of our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and their presence is the reason for Allah Almighty's blessings and mercy to appear.
Oradaki insanlara Allah'a şükür, yani bu hürmetleri var.
And those holy people and the family and the descendants of our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, are a source and mercy and blessing for the people who live in those surroundings.
Maşallah o kadar çok bu sultanlar var orada ki yani bir 10 günde hapsini gezmek yani adabıyla.
In the land of Egypt, there are so many spiritual sultans. Within 10 days, it's impossible to visit them all with due respect.
Bir sene ister.
To visit them all with due respect would probably take an entire year.
Çok hızlı bir şekilde şey yaptık. O da
We made a short trip to Egypt and to visit those holy people.
8-10 gün.
It's been a trip of 8-10 days.
Ta en güney olan tarafa Şazili tarikatının
And we went to the south of Egypt, to the very south.
imamı olan Ebu Hasan Şazili Hazretlerine.
And there we visit Imam Hasan Shazili.
Ziyaret ettik.
And we visited him there.
O mübarek de öyle bir uzak bir yere istemiş ki kimse gelmesin diye.
And he wanted to be in such a remote place that that no one would come there.
Hatta şeyden sonra özlet olarak epeyce bir uzun yoldur. Yine insanlar.
It is such a long journey and it's such a remote, distant place, yet people still travel there.
O sultanları sevenler onlara daima ziyarete gidiyorlar, boş bırakmıyorlar.
And those who love such spiritual sultans they go even to those remote places and do not leave those places empty.
Orada acayip bir şeylerdir. Kuyu bile yok. Yani
And it's an extraordinary place, that remote place, where Imam Shazali, his makam is to be found, and there's not even a water well.
kuyudan su çıkaracaksan yok.
There's no water well for the people living there.
Bir kendisi mübareğin kerametle kuyusu var. O da tabii ancak kendisine yeterdi.
There's only a well of that saint, that well that belonged to Imam Shazali, and that is only one well that may have just sufficed for himself.
Ondan sonra şimdi su olmadığı halde koca kasaba, şehir var. Orada etrafta şehirler var. Onun
And even though there is no water well to be found in the surroundings, there are villages, there are cities,
bereketini isterler. Bereketi de olur. Ona
and people come there and they ask for the blessings and for the mercy of Allah Almighty, and they receive the blessings for the sake of that holy person.
sonra öteki taraflarda da nereye gidersek mübareklerin, sultanların ziyaretleri hürmet ederek Allah'a şükür
And this holds true to the entirety of Egypt. Wherever you go, there are these spiritual sultans, those holy saints to be found, which are the source of the mercy and the blessings of Allah Almighty wherever you go in Egypt.
Bu yeni tayfa denen bu sonradan çıkan peygambere, ehl-i beytine, alim evliyalara hürmet etmeyen tayfa
There is now a new group who do not pay any respect to the beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, to his family, to his descendants, and to the saints.
yok oralarda Allah'a şükür.
But we are thankful to Allah Almighty that we have not experienced or seen any such people there.
Hepsi muhabbetli.
All the people in Egypt, they show respect and have love for the holy ones.
Onlara saygılı ziyaretlerini yaparlar.
They show respect to the family of the beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, to his descendants, and to the saints. And they all visit their makams.
Hatta makam olarak da başka sahabelerin makamları var. Bazılarının kabir olarak, bazıları makam olarak.
And there are also many Sahaba of our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings, to be found in Egypt. Some of them are literally buried in those places. Some of them have their makams.
Gene hepsi ziyaret ediliyor.
And people go and visit them all.
O bir de tam ikinci bir yer var. Orada bu firavunların tapınağın içine
And there's also a place which used to be a place of worship of the pharaohs.
cami yaptırmış mübarek.
And that saint turned that place of worship of the pharaohs into a mosque.
Abul Haccac diye.
Abul Hajjaj turned that place of worship into a mosque.
O firavunun tam tapınağın içine cami yaptırmış, türbesi de orada.
Exactly within the place of worship of the pharaoh, within their temple, he made a mosque, and he's also buried there.
Mübareğin onu bu kefereler, İngilizler falan bu nasıl bu olmaz bunun içinde demişler bunu.
And his makam is to be found in that temple of the pharaoh. The disbelievers, they did not want to preserve that makam.
Bu camiyi, türbeyi buradan kaldıralım demişler.
And those Englishmen and the disbelievers that tried to remove, that makam, that mosque, that turba.
Tabii her zaman olduğu gibi bir şey yapamamışlar, taşını bile kaldıramamışlar.
But there was nothing they could do against it. They could not even remove a single stone of that makam.
Onu da Allah'a şükür ziyarete nasip oldu bize.
And we are thankful that Allah Almighty has made us to also visit that holy place.
Onlar İmam Şahrani Hazretleri, İmam Şafii Hazretleri Tabii Ehl-i Beyt olarak hepsi onlarda bir sokak var, Ehl-i Beyt sokağı diye.
And these are all those numerous, countless holy people which Mawlana has just mentioned. And in Egypt, there's also one famous street where the Holy Family of our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, is to be found.
Onu da yenilemişler.
And they have
ziyaretler çok. Büyük kutuplar, Ahmet Bedevi Hazretleri,
there are many saints and holy people to visit there.
İbrahim Dusuki Hazretleri, İbn Ata Sekenderi Hazretleri, Yakut Arş, bu mübarekler büyük kutuplar, büyük.
These holy people Mawlana has just enumerated are huge, big saints. They are kutub.
Evliyalar, imamlar.
They are awliya, they are imams.
İmam Şahrani Hazretleri, İmam Şafii Hazretleri. Tabii Ehl-i Beyt olarak hepsi onlarda bir sokak var, Ehl-i Beyt sokağı diye.
And thus there are many saints and holy people to be found in Egypt, and there are also many members of the family of our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, to be found there, and also descendants of our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, to be found there. And there's this specific street dedicated to the household of our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him.
Onu da yenilemişler.
And they have renovated that street where one can visit the Ahlul Bayt of our beloved Prophet, peace be upon him.
İnsanlar daha rahat görüyor, daha rahat ziyaret edebiliyor.
And now people have easy access to visit those places and to visit the Ahlul Bayt there and to see them.
Onların faydası var.
And those are holy people who give benefit, who give you an advantage.
Onlar ölü değil.
And they are not dead.
Ölü olan, bu peşine koşturduğumuz insanlar dünya menfaati için.
The dead ones are those people who people run after for worldly benefit.
Günlerce, saatlerce, bazen aylarca peşine koşturuyorlar.
We see people running after people for worldly benefit for hours, for months.
Benim şu işimi yap, bunu yap diye.
And there are people who, in order to fulfill their own interest, run after other people to make them do what they want them to do for their own benefit.
Dünyada artık hiç kimse bir fayda sağlayamaz.
But in this world, there's no longer any worldly benefit or any worldly advantage or any worldly profit to be gained.
Kimse bir fayda sağlayamaz.
There is no worldly benefit to get gained any longer in this world for anyone.
Benim gibi fayda değil bu.
These worldly things do not have any benefit any longer.
Değil de yani gene bir şey aldım, kazandım zannetme.
And therefore, don't think that you took a worldly advantage, that you have obtained or gained something.
Fayda değil, zarardır.
And that what you think is a benefit is no benefit, but it's harmful.
Allah muhafaza etsin.
May Allah Almighty protect us.
Dünya münafıklarla dolmuş,
This world is filled with hypocrites.
kafirlerle dolmuş.
This world is filled with people who deny Allah Almighty.
Bu hal iyi bir hal değil.
And the world finds itself in a situation which is not good.
Kime iyi değil? O menfaat bekleyen insanlar için.
This world is not good. For whom? For those who are self-centered and only work for self-interest to make personal profit and personal gain. This world is no longer a good place for them.
Müslüman için dediğimiz gibi her şey iyidir.
But for a Muslim, everything is good and beneficial.
Her şey Allah'a şükürler olsun deriz.
For a Muslim, there are only situations for which one can thank Allah Almighty.
Allah'ımız bizlerdir.
A Muslim thanks Allah Almighty for everything, because a Muslim knows that Allah Almighty is with him.
En büyük şey odur.
And this is the greatest achievement, to be with Allah Almighty.
Allah seninle olduktan sonra ne Amerika ne Afrika ne bilmem.
When Allah Almighty is with you, you don't need anyone else, neither America nor Africa or any other place,
Avrupa umurumuzda değil.
or Europe. We don't care.
Hiç ona yok şu bu yaptı, bize eziyet etti, bizi kabul etmedi, bizim 100 senedir kapılarında bekliyoruz. 100 senedir senin ahmaklığından bekliyorsun orada, başka şey değil.
A Muslim should not care about this worldly situation. We hear people complaining about their situation, that they have been made to wait for 100 years at the gates of Europe, but it's your own stupidity that made you wait there for such a long time.
Ahmak olmasan Allah'a tevekkül edersin.
If you weren't stupid, you would have trusted in Allah Almighty.
Onlar senin peşinden koşturur.
You would have trusted in Allah Almighty, and it would have been them who would run after you.
Şeffafımızın Şeyh Nazım Hazretleri'nin dediği gibi.
As Mawlana Shaykh Nazim used to say,
İşte yok Avrupa'ya gireceğiz, yok şey efendim.
they say we want to be part of Europe, we want to enter Europe, we want to be part of this and that.
Bunların biz istemiyoruz deseniz, bak nasıl sizin.
But Mawlana Shaykh Nazim used to say, but if you rejected them, look at how they would run after you.
Peşinizden koşturacaklar. Nasıl
They would run after you if you would turn away from them.
şey yapacaklar. Bu yani siyasete girdik ama artık siyaset insanların kanına işlemiş.
This is political to some extent, but politics have become part of people's bloods.
Ne için? Çünkü bir Avrupa'ya girecek zanneden insan, girecek zanneden insan cennete girdi zannediyor.
People have made themselves to depend on politics, and politics is all that people care. They think they will have entered paradise if they enter Europe.
Halbuki hiçbir şey yok öyle.
But there's nothing to be found there.
Allah Razzaktır. Allah her tarafta
It is Him, Allah Almighty, who provides.
rızkını veriyor.
And wherever you are, He will provide for you.
Garip insanlar görürsün, her gece gösteriyor, yok bu denizde boğulmuş.
And every night you see those poor people who try to migrate to Europe, who are then drowned in the seas,
Ötekisini kampın içine koymuşlar,
or who are put and oppressed in refugee camps,
yerde yatıyor.
and you see them in their miserable state lying on the ground,
Ötekisini kovuyorlar, ötekisini dövüyorlar.
and you see how they are rejected, how they are beaten up.
Halbuki mübarekler, siz o kadar eziyet çekeceğinize memlekete o gayreti gösterseniz,
But instead of having undergone all that torment and showing all that effort, if you had rather shown that effort in your own countries,
çok daha rahat yaşarsınız,
then you would have lived in a much better state.
çok daha sizin için daha iyi olur.
And it would have been much better if you would have shown that effort in your own country, and you would lead a more comfortable lives.
Avrupa nedir?
What is Europe?
Amerika nedir?
What is America?
Hiç.
Nothing.
Orası köle olarak şey yapar.
It's places of slavery.
Şimdi eskiden oralara Afrika'dan bu kefereler gidip gariban Afrikalılar alırdı.
In former times, those disbelievers and oppressors, they would take people from Africa by force,
Çoğu da Müslüman, o Senegal'dır, o taraflardan.
and most of them, they were most the Muslims. They come from Senegal and other Muslim places,
Aldıkları garibanları gemilere koyup
and they would take those Muslims from Africa by force, put them on their ships,
Amerika'ya götürürler.
and they would bring them to America.
Avrupa'da fazla galiba yoktu o, çünkü onlar biraz medeniyet falan deyip de utanırlardı kendi köle almaya.
And thus those slaves would be brought to America. In Europe, they would feel ashamed of having slaves because they were claiming to be civilized.
Afrika'dan Amerika'ya götürürlerdi.
And thus people were taken by force from Africa to America.
Yarısı yolda ölür.
Half of them would die during the journey on the sea.
Kalan yarısı da artık yetişir oraya.
And among the remaining half would partly reach America.
Onlar da ezzetle yani %20'si sağlam kalır. İşte onlardan bu insanlar, oradaki insanlar, siyahlar.
And maybe only 20% then actually made it to America.
Türedi.
And they are, and now the African Americans have their descendants in all those people who were by force taken from Africa to America.
O vakit eziyetle alırlardı. Müslümanları yavaş yavaş namaz kıldırırlardı.
Thus Muslims would be taken by force. They would be slowly stopped to perform their prayers.
Oruç tuturlardı.
They were then no longer allowed to neither pray nor to fast.
Okuyanları da bırakmazlardı İslam öğretsinler.
And those who studied Islam, who knew about Islam, they would be prevented from teaching Islam.
Onlar da dinden yavaş yavaş çocuklarını filan hepsini dinsiz yahut Müslüman olmayarak yetiştirdiler.
Thus they would slowly raise their children to no longer be Muslims, and they would make the religion disappear.
O vakit zorla götürüyor.
And back then people were taken by force and brought there by force.
Yani tutup alıp götürüp satıyorlardı.
And thus they were seized, they were taken by force as slaves, and they would be sold as slaves in America.
Ona ben şimdi çok şaşırıyorum. Çok Allah'ın işine bak diyoruz.
And now we're surprised when you look at people today, and we are astonished by Allah Almighty's wisdom.
Şimdikiler de oraya gidelim diye can atıyorlar. Yarısı denizde.
Now we see people that they are ready to give away their lives in order to go there. Half of them are risking to lose their lives by drowning in the sea.
Boğuluyor, ölüyor. Yarısı giderken o haydutların elinde ne işkence ne şerefsiz şeyler yapılıyor.
And the other half that may make it to arrive on the shores, they are mistreated and abused with all kinds of disgraceful actions of those bandits over there.
Ondan sonra oraya gidince de köpek muamelesi yapılır.
And then when they arrive there, they are treated like dogs.
Yok köpek değil ya. Köpek şimdi çok muazzam bir şeydir. Köpeğe hizmet ediyor.
No, they are not treated like dogs. Dogs are in a wonderful state today. They are creatures which are being served.
Baş tacıdır.
The dogs have become the crowns on the heads of people.
Artık onun köpekten daha köpek çok değil dediğimiz gibi yani.
A dog has no longer a miserable life. A dog has a good life these days. It's those people who have miserable lives.
Fare muamelesi desek hadi artık.
It would be more appropriate. It's no longer a dog's life. It's rather a mouse's life or a rat's life.
Köpeğin çok kıymeti var.
Because a dog is held in high esteem in today's world.
Hizmetine durmuş millet.
Human beings are in the service of dogs.
Sabah akşam.
From morning to night time.
Ne istiyor, nasıl yıkamasından.
They're fully occupied by serving the dogs, by washing them, feeding them.
Yıkamasından hepsini yapıyorlar.
They do everything, all kinds of things for their dogs.
Bunlar yani öyle kıymetsiz bir yere gidiyorlar ki kendi memleketlerinde.
But people, they are treated in a miserable state. They leave their countries to go to those places.
Rahat insan gibi yaşayacaklarına.
And instead of living a comfortable lives in their countries,
onu kendi kendilerine köleden beter.
They destroy their lives and turn their lives into lives that is worse than the life of a slave.
Kabul ediyorlar.
And they accept it and they do it willingly.
O işkenceleri çekiyorlar.
They undergo this torment willingly.
Gidiyor oraya. Allah akıl fikir versin diyeceğiz.
All we can say is that may Allah Almighty give them reason to think.
Başka şey değil. Allah'a Azze ve Celle'nin verdiğine razı olan Allah ondan da razı olur.
Those who are thankful with what Allah Almighty has given to them are the ones with whom Allah Almighty is thankful.
Çünkü herkesin rızkını Allah vermiş.
It is Him, Allah Almighty, who gives the provision to everyone.
Allah verdiği rızık sana var gelir nerede olursan olsun.
And wherever you may be, Allah Almighty's provision will reach you.
Rızkın bitti mi istersen bütün dünya senin olun.
And if there's no provision left any longer, then there's nothing for you, even if you possessed the entire world.
Olsun bir nefes, bir yudum su alamazsın.
If there's no longer any provision left for you in this world, even if you possessed the entire world, you could no longer take any single breath, and there's no water to sip for you any longer.
Ama kime anlatırsa Allah insanları şaşkın etmişler hepsi.
But who should we tell this? People have been made to become confused.
Bu da neden? Dediğimiz gibi Allah'ı unuttukları için.
And why have people become confused? Because they have forgotten about Allah Almighty.
Başka şeylerin peşinde koşturdukları için.
They run after rather other things.
Baştan beri menfaat olarak
And all they care about is self-interest.
Avrupa'ya gideceğiz,
They want to go to Europe, to America.
Amerika'ya gideceğiz, şu yapacağız, bu yapacağız.
We want to do this or we want to do that for the sake of this world, they say.
En sonunda da gideceği yer belli.
But in the end, the only place where they will end up is inevitable for everyone.
Çukur.
It's the pit hole.
Oraya ya çukur olur ya cennet bahçesi olur.
And the place where they will then be buried will either be a pit hole for them or will become a garden of paradise.
Allah muhafaza etsin.
May Allah Almighty protect us.
Allah akıl fikir versin.
May Allah Almighty give us a reason to think.
Allah sahip göndersin insanlara.
And may Allah Almighty send Mahdi alayhi salam to humanity.
Çünkü Şeyh Baba'nın dediği gibi bu dünyanın sırf bu memleketin değil, bütün dünyanın A'dan Z'ye olan bütün şeyi değişecek. Değişmedikten sonra
And as Mawlana Shaykh Nazim used to say, the entire world within its entirety needs to be changed from A to Z to make things good again.
hepsini yani bütün dünya
And not all, the entire world needs to change.
bir memleket değişse o kurtaramaz.
It's not just about one country being changed. This will not save this world.
Daha sonra gene aynı şekilde aynı yolda gider.
The entire world needs to change. Otherwise, they will return to their bad ways.
Çünkü imkanı yok. Bu yoldan çıkmasının imkanı yok. Ancak sahip gelince
And there's no possibility for this entire world to change except by the means of Mahdi alayhi salam.
Elif'ten ya Lam Elif'e kadar yeni sistem gelir.
And with Mahdi alayhi salam, this entire world will change in its entirety from Aleph to Lam Aleph, and there will then be this new system.
Tertemiz kalır.
And this world will be in a pure and clean state.
O insanlık da rahat eder.
And people, humanity will find peace.
İnsanlar da rahat eder.
And every single individual in this world will finally find peace.
Allah tez zamanda sahip göndersin.
May Allah Almighty send Mahdi alayhi salam as quickly as possible.
Müslümanlar da dediğimiz gibi Allah'a her zaman şükretsin ki
And again, the advice to the Muslims is always be thankful for everything
onun yolunda olduğumuz için.
and first and foremost, you need to be thankful that you are following the way of Allah Almighty.
Allah'a binlerce şükretsin.
Give 1,000 thanks to Allah Almighty.
O öteki şeyler mühim değil.
There's nothing else that is important except following the way of Allah Almighty.
Ve minallah tevfik. El Fatiha.